Steven Brewster in the house. What's up, bro?
What's
How you doing?
up? What's up, man?
You in Nashville?
I am at home. Well, Franklin, but it's kind of the same thing.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I live in the burbs, so
Love it, bro. Love it.
Sucks.
Well, yeah, right. Franklin's amazing in every way. Everyone's trying to move there right now.
we love it. We do love it. It's a pretty dope place to be. So
It's amazing. All right, we're gonna dive into this because I don't want to waste anyone's time because I'm gonna take full-blown advantage of having you on this. First of all, bro, thank you so much for being on this. It does mean a lot to me that you would take a few minutes and come on to this and add value to me. I know when you talk, I listen, and you're shaking your head, but it is so true, my man. It is so true. You know, when I met you, I actually met you through Micah, and Micah had a meeting with you, and I was serving at Central at the time, and he had a meeting. I just crashed the meeting.
Yep.
And you were like, who are you? I'm like, my name is Dylan. I'm a big fan. I've been watching you for years.
I don't have fans, man. There ain't no fans. This is Christian world.
And you're like, what do you do? And I'm like, I work for a church in Las Vegas called Central. And you're like, oh, yeah, I know those guys. And then since then, you and I just stayed in touch.
Been homies ever since.
And we don't talk to Mikey anymore, of course, but
why would we?
You and I have been good buddies since. You've added a lot of value to me in the church creative world, and I've been following you, reading your stuff for a long time. So appreciate you being on here, man. I'm super excited. We're going to dive into this. We're in volume one. This article was called Christian Karaoke, really written from a place of the desire and need to challenge myself and to challenge others that we just can't assume that everyone's coming into our building saved and they participate in worship. You know, we just recorded a podcast the other day with a buddy of mine, and we talked about the idea of the crowd is rough. Man, the crowd's rough this morning, walking off stage and being like, the crowd is rough. And we talked about pinpointing that back to ourselves as leaders, like it starts with us. And so this really kind of piggybacks off that. So I don't know, man. Christian Karaoke, you can go on the website if you're listening. You can read this article. It's about a 5-minute read, 4-minute read, and then just giving a couple ways to avoid Christian karaoke. And when I say Christian karaoke, if you're wondering what that means, it really is the idea of someone who is lost or is not a believer, not a Christian. They're in the room and they're just standing and staring because they have no idea what is happening. And I don't know if I heard it somewhere or if I just said most of my stuff, Brewster, I stole from you anyways, but this idea just came on like, Christian karaoke, man. They're just up there. They're just lyrics on the screen and there's just music in the house. It means nothing. And so as a worship planner, worship leader, producer, even production guys and creative planning, this is just a thought to challenge you to remind yourself that for those who do not know what this is, it can be simply just Christian karaoke. So Brew, I'll call you Brewster, I guess, or Brew. You'll hear either one. Dive in. Tell us what you think, man. You can agree, disagree, push back, add, take away. Whatever. No,
I agree. I think so. The first thing is I think that for most people who attend your church, they don't know, they're not versed in worship music. So they think you wrote every song. You wrote Battle Belongs. You wrote Graves in the Gardens. You wrote Oceans. And they don't know any different because they're all to them, they're almost all new songs, right?
Yep.
Now, to the person who goes to church all the time, they get a little more acclimated, obviously. But and I think some of it is like seasonal or generational. Like there's different seasons when you are permission to do different things with music, right? That you don't do every week at church. And there was in your article you talked about like doing the cover song or the secular song. I kind of feel like for most, I mean, there's still pockets where that makes a ton of sense. And culturally to the church and culturally to the community, it makes sense to do that. But there's also a lot of places that nowadays that wouldn't even make sense anymore. Like, and the global church worship culture has shifted since everyone was doing that, And so I think our biggest opportunity to become karaoke singers is when we're not paying attention to what God's doing through the earth. And so the more connected you are to what God's telling you to do as a worship leader, what he's telling you to do for the congregation you lead, and that you're tapped in to what's happening in the rest of the community as well, it all of a sudden starts to make a lot more sense of what songs you're picking and why you're picking them,
Right.
And how you're releasing original content for your church, or how you're writing songs for your church, and what that process even looks like. So there's so many lanes we could run down, Dylan, because
it really is. I know it's wide open too.
You peeled the first layer of the onion, but there's a lot more layers to go.
There really is. And a couple things to breaking down that, peeling the layer off, because I really am opening up a can of worms. I realize that. I realize that with all of these articles. First of all, the article is only legit 3 or 4 minute read. Right. And so you can't, I'm leaving a lot of things open-ended, and it doesn't, even like I just recorded a podcast with Micah, and I was like, it was way too short. Like it's left open-ended. And so I like doing that, because it just adds more down the road, and it gets people thinking too, like how can I how can I take away, how can I add, how can I make this to my everyday, how can I be intentional with this? But yes, you're right when I am peeling a layer off of the onion here. So, well, let's just break it down then, because I knew it was going to be like this. I knew that we were going to start talking, and it was just going to be like, bro, how do we even start dissecting this down? And we're not here to give all the answers away. I don't personally know the answers,
No.
but I did just write 3 ways. So one, be burdened in your planning. Like, if and bro, you are like the OG creative guy when it comes to creative planning. Man, you've been doing it way longer than me, and so you could talk all day about the importance of being burdened while you plan.
Yeah.
And so, for myself, I'm walking into an environment, into a planning creative meeting, and what is on my mind, right? Challenging myself to walk into this creative meeting and on a spiritual level, and being like, hey, the idea that there will be an individual who walks through our door this Sunday that doesn't know Jesus, just that idea alone should put so much burden on us as planners and creative process. And then when I talk about creative process and planning, yes, I'm referring to set list, I'm referring to creative elements, I'm referring to anything, message openers, outros, whatever the creative meeting is for, the series, whatever. That should be such a burden for us, and it should drive everything that we do. And so, what's a way, Brewster, that you could give the listener and myself to maybe one point, 2 point, 3 point, whatever you want to do, in creative process, since that's where that's your specialty. What would you suggest in the creative process to be burdened in your planning, to really make the planning about about your mission, wherever your mission of your church is, but in this context, about reaching lost people? Like how do we do that? What's a good start for that?
Well, it doesn't start with being cool. So
that's so good.
A lot of times
it's so simple, but it's so good. Like, it's cool is just so useless.
But the thing is a lot of times we're like, oh, what did Elevation do? What did Central do? What did Glades do? What did what did Voo Church or Zoe do? And we're trying to like imitate and not create. And so then we're chasing cool. We're not chasing like being intentional. Like, okay, what is the point of this series? Like, why are we even doing this series? Or this message or this event? Like, what's the purpose behind it? And what are the verses that inspired our pastor? So before I ever like even walk into a creative meeting, I've already gone through a list of questions with the senior leader or the communicator to find out like where they're coming from. Because you can make the dopest thing in the world, if it doesn't connect, it doesn't matter. And like, I don't know that people are going to church today, right now in our world, the way it is, to be just for entertainment, right? they want a revelation. And so how can the art that you create, whether it's graphics or lights or songs or set list or whatever the creative discipline you have, what can you do to to propel God's purpose in that service forward, right? And so
Yeah.
you're not going to do that if you haven't spent time first hearing what the motivation is, and then second praying about what God would have you and your team and your discipline, your art do to support that. And so you got to have both of those things to start off, or else you're wasting your time. And then also, if it's a creative meeting, don't just have the same three white people around a computer looking at Google for creative stuff. Like, that's not kingdom representation. So,
No, it's not. You want to break that down or no?
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think your creative
so
meeting should
good.
be your creative meeting should be, and this is a little off of like the karaoke thing, but your creative meeting should be the most creative meeting that you have all week or all month. And so get 20 people in the room, break them into teams, do exercises that inspire creativity so that you're actually getting ideas. Because right now, when you go in the room, you get like three people in Google and you try to figure it out and you walk away with like one solid idea, maybe. Well, if you had five teams of four people and they all came up with one idea, you just got five ideas.
Right.
And they're all going to come up with more than one. So now you have 10 ideas. You only have to pick one of the 10 that's good to use, and then it goes forward. But again, it's because you prepared properly.
Right.
It's because you leaned in. And whether it's karaoke and you're a worship leader, or whether you're the creative arts pastor, or whether you're the lighting designer, it always starts with knowing the why and then asking God what he would want you to do in this moment.
Yeah, that's good. And back on the karaoke thing, I think, like for us Christians who are on stage leading worship, singing, playing an instrument, it's not karaoke for us. Like we experience God through these lyrics. We experience God, or we should be. We experience God through these songs. We got our hands lifted. We're in surrender. We're in all of what God is doing. Like we are at the feet of Jesus in these songs. But so often, and I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but so often, like we can get, I can just start preaching here accidentally, but so often we can get, as a Christian and as a lead worshiper, maybe whatever you want to call it on the platform, we can become discouraged because of the interactions that we're getting from those we're trying to lead. And that in itself should be a reminder that we are reaching lost people. So good on you. That's good as the church. So don't expect them to walk in and be fully engaged, obviously. And then two, talking on your cool point, when I was 19, I became part of a church plant, and I didn't know anything about anything. I still don't know much, but I definitely didn't know it back then. And I was challenged by my pastor. I was a worship pastor at this church plant, and he said, "Hey, why do you want to do this song this weekend? What's the reason behind that?" And my answer was, "Well, because it's pretty cool to do. Like it's a cool thing to do." And I wrote it in the article. He just reminded me then and there, man, wrong answer. Like I understand what you're trying to say, but man, he was like, I hope that we would be a church that is known to be more than just cool. And I was like, so in that moment, I was taught immediately how to become intentional with our planning, and to be more than just cool. It's okay to walk out and do a cool bit and do a cool song, but we got to be intentional. What's the why behind why we're doing it? And that was the be intentional with culture point. To share a story real fast, this actually came from Central. This girl was serving. She was a bartender at one of the casinos, and she came to church.
Never been to a casino before. Tell me about it.
Yeah, okay. I haven't been either. I've only heard about him. So anyways, so we were, so she was there and she came and she would visit. She was visiting. I think her mom started going first, and she started visiting, and and we were pretty intentional because going back to what you said earlier, like it still makes sense for some churches in Central and Las
Totally.
Vegas at
And
the time.
Central and Las Vegas, it
Yes.
still makes sense now, probably.
Yes,
for them.
it does. And so we were very intentional with our planning to do a cover song or a secular song. And those who are listening but not watching, I'm doing gigantic quotations around all that as I'm saying it. But we would do a song, let's just say, that wasn't on Christian charts or wasn't in worship music. It was popular on the radio, top 40. And so she would hear the song and she would go back and work the night shift at the casino. And while she's serving drinks, she would hear that song. And she told us what that would do is she'd hear that top 40 song and it would take her back to the message that she heard that day. And whatever message she heard that day, whether it be on grace, love, hope, passion, whatever it was, she would remind herself, oh yeah, church. And eventually it led to her salvation. And then eventually she ended up becoming one of the executive assistants for our team. And her life was radically changed through it. You know, a restoration with her adopted son, just all this crazy stuff just took place.
Wow.
And that just fired me up because it was some random song that we picked off the radio. Of course, we tied it into the message, but it was just a reminder that right there is so much more important than being cool. And that took me back to my day of 19 when I was planning churches. Like, this is why I was challenged that day to be intentional and not to be cool, because it actually can bring life change if you do it right. And so, I don't know, that's just a little tangent I went on because of the third point on here, which was, you know, we are called to be more than just cool. That's what it says right here. So.
Well, and again, I love what you said, and I want to make sure that it's perfectly clear. I'm not saying that churches that use cover songs are not amazing. Some of my best friends lead creative teams and churches that use that tool and they still use it effectively. I just think that you've got to know if that's the right tool for you to use.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And if it's the right tool, then use it and be amazing at it. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I know, bro. Like, I know your heart. You are like, I could sit here and listen to you talk about this all day, because of your wisdom and knowledge. It's definitely working. I see it working. And at the same time, I've been a part of churches and I've seen churches where it doesn't work. And you're like,
totally.
So wing and miss, hang that one up. That's not what we do.
Don't do that ever again.
Don't do that. You are not Katy Perry. Sorry.
Right.
So anyway, point number 2 is it's just not a sing along. Do not do worship songs because it's what people want to hear or what the band wants to play. Use them with a purpose to add a little perspective to the message and theme of the day. So
the band wants to play is not part of the equation, right?
Exactly.
Because it's funny. Like, I talk to worship teams literally every day of my life now, and without a doubt, it's like, oh, our team just tired of playing that song, and I'm like, well, who are they playing it for? Because it's not about playing a song that you enjoy playing or you get tired of playing the song. I mean, let's take it spiritually first, right? Like, it's about what's connecting to the people that you're responsible to lead and how you're bringing them to a different place in worship. Because for some people, that's the pathway that they connect to God, right?
Right.
The second thing is, I bet you One Republic gets tired of playing the same songs every night too.
Mm-hmm.
But they do, because they work. Mm-hmm. So don't, like, we can't allow our preference to supersede our purpose, you know?
Right. That's good. Yeah. 100%. That's good. I think, you know, if I'm listening to this and I'm a worship pastor or a service planner, service producer, whatever the term is today, you know, and I'm listening to this going, okay, how can I effective immediately bring this to life? Like, what's today? Wednesday, and I have creative planning tomorrow for 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
What are some things I can do to bring this to life tomorrow in the meeting I'm going to lead with my team? I got my music director that'll be there, our production director that'll be there, and some other creative guys and girls who will be there, and then maybe 2 or 3 volunteers who are already planning to be there on the meeting tomorrow. I really want to bring this to them and bring this to life. What are some action steps for them? I'll just start by asking a simple question, and then Brewster, please feel free to add, or take away. I think my heart would fall on the burden part, because I've lacked that in planning for years. Coming in with the burden, and Brewster, I don't know if you made this up, you probably did, or if you got it from somewhere else. I think I took this from you, but the open chair, like the open chair policy in the creative meeting, break that down, because I think it's important. As common as that may sound to you and I, it's really not that common with most church creatives. And I think it's important to know why there's open chair policy in creative meetings. And I think that's a great first step in your planning. Is the open chair policy. Break that down.
So the first thing I would do before I even talked about the chair is I'd do the meeting someplace you don't normally do the meeting, so that it changes the canvas of what of the room. Because if you do the same thing over and over again, routine can become Novocaine to your creativity. So don't make intentional changes, right? Bring a chair, put it in the room, set it down, and that chair is the person that God's called you to reach with the content you're going to create. So what do you do to reach that person? So every time you guys have a question, you think back about that person. What is that? How's that person going to receive this? How are they going to hear it? How are they going to feel it? How are they going to see it? It doesn't unspiritualize what you're doing. It actually contextualizes how you're going to be the steward of what God gives you to help deliver to the other person. So having that empty chair is vitally important. And then I think the other thing that's really important is start your meeting off by praying and worshiping. Don't start your meeting off with an icebreaker. Start your meeting off with, we're here, and for the next 5 minutes, we're going to chase what God's got to say in the other 55, and see what we can do.
Yeah. For me, when I heard that term, I think I heard it from you, but when I heard that term, we try to do that in all of our creative meetings, and we weren't perfect with it. We didn't have it every time. Sometimes we had several chairs empty. Sometimes we had all of our chairs full and too many people. But what it did was it almost kind of prevented it becoming about us a little bit, because we would say, "Oh, these are all great, man. We want to jam to this song, Graves in the Garden, and we want to do a key change, and we want to do this." And me. And I was like, "Well, time out. What do we need to do to actually reach that person?" Because again, we're just trying to plan cooler Christian karaoke at the end of the day for this individual. Now, when I say that too, I kind of feel it in my heart a little bit, like the Holy Spirit can move in the term Christian karaoke. God can still move. God can still bring joy and bring life and bring peace and bring salvation through a song that's never been heard before, based off the story I just talked about with the lady in the casino. So I'm not disqualifying that. This is just a challenge for us creative planners and set list people that do this kind of stuff. But anyway, so that empty chair thing is a great way to start off. To do that. I know for me, one of the things that we started doing, I was literally driving myself to insanity, because we would go into this stiff boardroom meeting with a giant whiteboard, and it was just so consistent. We have set list playing today. We have this planning. We have series, and I knew the room we were going to. I knew what we were going to talk about. I knew the outcome of the meeting. I knew the songs we were going to pick. I knew it all before we even got there to do it. And that's nobody's fault but my own. I had been given the trust that I could lead out of this, and so I just challenged the team. I said, what if I actually ended up pulling myself out of that meeting, but I challenged them. Said, what if you guys move this to the platform, and you dim the lights, you get in a setting on the platform, you got acoustic, you got your Nord or whatever you want, and you just build a set list that way, and build your transitions that way, and just worship and pray. And man, we saw a significant increase in things becoming better. I'm saying that with quotations, because that can be, that's opinionated, but it just felt more Holy Spirit driven, because our guys and girls were getting into a place of acceptance of what God's doing, instead of just going to a boardroom and being like, check, 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 check. And so that really also challenged me with the open chair thing as well, just kind of getting yourself and it says somewhere in here that worship destination is at the feet of Jesus. Well, that is even also in your planning, right? And so that prevents Christian karaoke in a way as well. So I don't know.
For sure.
Who knows? Who's got the answers?
You
man?
know.
Who's got the answers? Who's got
There's
the
not
answers?
an answer, though. There's not an answer. There's just
right.
a next. And so
That's good.
Our job is to steward and bring great effort and then let God handle response. So
yeah, that's good. Well, bro, I appreciate it, man. We're keeping these somewhat short. And hey, tell us real fast what exactly you do. I want to know what you do and how you help churches.
Yeah, so there's two things I do. The thing that takes up most of my time right now is I help churches release music. So I work with churches all over the country and help them identify the best way to release music, build a writing culture, build a publishing, like figure out their publishing, how to distribute music and all that kind of stuff. So that's the first thing that I do. And the second thing I do is I coach creatives and executives. And so just help them try to get a little bit better each day, whether it's a creative team or a creative leader. And I get to do that. And I love every minute of it. So
it's incredible. If you're listening to this and you need any help with the creative process in your church, or you're thinking about, you got great dudes and you got great girls left and right of you who are songwriters, you guys want to begin the journey of writing original content and getting it out to the world, this is your guy, Stephen Brewster. So you need to hit him up. How can we get a hold of you? Like how do we reach out to you?
You can go to my Instagram, B_REWSTER. Or just shoot me an email, b@stephenbrewster.me.
Yeah, that's good. Bro, I love you, man. I appreciate all your wisdom on this today, man.
I love you too.
And this won't be the only one. And this volume 1 is this is just a release. This is a certain type of podcast that I'm releasing attached to articles. And then there will be in between just normal podcasts where we have guys like Stephen Brewster on, and we're talking about just random things, creative process to leadership issues to anything, and so those will be rolling out as well. So we appreciate you guys listening today. Anything last minute for us, Brew? Are you good? You feel groovy in Franklin?
Just love getting to be with y'all, and what you're doing is great, man. I'm stoked by it. I think it's gonna help a lot of people, so it's really cool.
Yeah, man. Stoked for it as well. If it just adds value to one person, then it's worth it for me. AJ, I was FaceTime with AJ earlier, and he said, "Bro, you're working." And I said, "Man, if it just adds value to one person, it's totally worth it." So I don't get paid for this. This is not my job. I'm very blessed and fortunate to work for a company called Amplio, who has blessed this. They said, "Go off and do this, build your podcast, help churches." And so this is free content, free resources. So it's there for you, man. Add value if it can. So love you, bro. Let's do this again soon.
I would love that. That'd be awesome.
All right, man. We'll see you.